Welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Matthew Lucas.
And I'm Stephen Ryan.
Who is the guru of all things. And today, Stephen, we are back in the wonderful Karori garden.
Yes, one of Mount Macedon's finest.
Excellent. And we were here before, and we'll link the previous video that we made up here. But Stephen, why are we here again today?
Yes. Well, it's a plant profile time.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about a specific hydrangea.
Yes.
And in this garden, this particular hydrangea has been used as a screen slash hedgy type thing.
Aha! And there's the big reveal.
Yes, and it is doing its job superbly. And it's a new variety of the oakleaf hydrangea, which is Hydrangea quercifolia, which means foliage like a quercus, which is in fact, of course, an oak.
Like an oak.
Yeah.
And the leaf is, we'll come on and have a look.
Yes, well, it's actually rather more reminiscent of some of the North American oaks,
Yes.
which makes sense because it's also a North American shrub.
Ah.
So they are alluding to its resemblance to their own oaks in that part of the world.
Okay.
And this particular selection is a really robust one and well worth looking out for, particularly for this sort of work, called Snow Queen.
Snow Queen.
it
Well,
has
it's beautiful. So the flowers are very perpendicular.
Yes, it's a very upright grower. It can get up to a couple of metres or 6 feet or so.
Yeah.
For this sort of purpose, it's ideal. Its upward facing flowers are very showy and make a great impact in the garden.
Yeah.
Its foliage is fantastic. And like all of the oak-leaf hydrangeas, when the cold weather sets in, it actually gets this wonderful blush of burgundy through its leaves because it's more or less evergreen, but it colours in the autumn.
Right.
And it holds that all winter.
There you go. So it doesn't drop its leaves. Now, you were just explaining that this isn't, in fact, the flower.
No, well, it's sort of part thereof.
Yes.
What most hydrangeas do is they produce two types of flowers.
Yeah.
These big showy things aren't in fact the flowers. The true flowers are the little beady bit in the middle.
Aha.
Now, the petal-like structures are actually bracts, which are modified leaves.
Yes.
That's why hydrangeas have flower heads,
Yeah.
and they can go through all sorts of weather and what have you.
Yeah.
And they're just there to attract pollinators, and the pollinators will come in for the true flowers, which are these little tiny fluffy numbers inside.
Now that you pointed out, you can see, so this is really just a fabulous costume.
It is, yes.
Like a showgirl.
Yes, it's done up and ready to go out.
This is North American. Then let's talk about its climatic suitability.
Well, it is very cold hardy and will
Yeah.
grow in most parts of North America.
What about its water needs?
Well, it's interesting because the oak-leaf hydrangea is far less of a water hog than the classical garden hydrangeas, the Hydrangea macrophyllus. They're not terribly good in highly humid climates, so I wouldn't see them as being particularly good in subtropical areas.
Yeah.
But Mediterranean through to cold climate areas should be fine for hydrangeas.
Excellent. What kind of conditions? Full sun, part shade? Because this border seems to be a bit of both.
It's one of those hydrangeas that is happy to go almost either way, except for the extremes. It will cope with fairly sunny aspects as long as it's not getting really stinking hot and dry, and it can cope with seriously shady aspects as long as it's getting some indirect light.
I can see that this hedge gets pruned. What's the pruning regime or the trimming regime for this particular one?
Yeah, the oak-leaf hydrangeas don't need to be pruned as hard as what you would prune the classical hydrangeas. So you just go back below the flower heads, 2 or 3 sets of leaves, and take the old flower heads off when they're finished blooming.
Yeah.
So that's the only pruning you need to do with these, other than perhaps to remove some old spent twiggy wood from the plant periodically. So you don't have to prune them really hard. And I have to say one other little aside, as you know I like asides.
Yes.
The word hydrangea is an interesting word.
Hydra, water.
Yes, and everybody assumes that that's the end. But in fact, it's a good name for hydrangeas because they do like water.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, hydrangea comes from hydra, water, and the other part of the name comes from the term for cup or vessel. And the reason they were called hydrangeas...
Where are you going with this?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
it is taking us somewhere. The reason they were called hydrangeas is that their seed capsules, which are quite small, are shaped like a little cup. So it's shaped like a water cup. So although the name seems terribly appropriate for this group of plants, it was actually named after a rather inconspicuous part of the plant. What can I say?
There you go.
Yes, so yes, water vessel is what the hydrangea's name means. So there you go.
Okay, let's talk propagating, because your run-of-the-mill hydrangea is fairly easy to take cuttings from. What about this baby?
Well, it's not so easy to strike from winter hardwood cuttings as you would with your normal garden hydrangea. So if I were taking cuttings off an oak-leaf hydrangea in any of its forms, I would use new wood that hasn't actually had flowers on it.
Right.
I would do it during the summer months, take prunings off it at summer while it's in flower, and I would then need to create the humidity crib sort of environment for them. And you'd use 2 nodal cuttings. So you'd cut below a set of leaves, take those lower leaves off, cut above the next set of leaves, and then prune the leaves in half so that they're not transpiring too much moisture. Put it into a sand or propagating mixture, and then enclose it in a jar or a Ziploc bag or whatever.
We might have to do a little propagating 101.
Yes, I think we will. At some point or another, we will do propagating.
We will, both in Ziploc bags and in your chamber of death, but it's the chamber of birth.
Yes, exactly. Yes, in a commercial propagating situation.
A commercial setting, indeed.
Yes.
It is such a beautiful hedge, Stephen.
It is beautiful, and I hope people have enjoyed looking at the oakleaf hydrangea and learning a little bit about it. And I really hope that they will subscribe and like and come and join us again next week.
Indeed. Now, we post once a week, and we are going to be doing such things as this, plant profiles, visit other people's gardens, as well as handy home hints. And we will follow up on that propagation story, because I, for one, have
too mean to buy plants. Yeah, I know.
25% success rate. So I want to learn the tricks of your professional trade.
All right.
Thank you for watching us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes, fantastic.